thank you so much for being on today. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Courtney. I am Kristina Lucia. I am the author, creator, and artist of my book series and of my creations. Behind me right now, I have the toys that I designed, and these toys led me to blogging, and blogging meant maybe to realize that I need to write my children's series. And the beautiful part of it is I just don't write them, I also illustrate them, and I'll actually switch my background so I can give you a taste of my illustrations really fast. Here we go. Where is it? So this is Bella's posse. Bella is the main character, the girl elephant. You saw her before, and I can switch back and forth as needed to both screens. Bella is literally a child version of myself. I didn't realize that until I really started writing. Bella was inspired by my friend's little girl, although it was my nickname for a long time, but I was shy about saying it. I was like, no, I can't say that. I didn't name after somebody else. Like that, I'd be chivalrous, you know. And I actually realized that my friend's little girl helped me identify with my inner child. And from based on my background, I realized through my healing work, I realized the importance of communication. And that's the mission behind my books. The mission behind my books is communication between children and adults. When we communicate more effectively, we're able to tap into the feelings because regardless of what age we are, what religion, what nationality, where we're located in the world, like sexual orientation, anything, you name it, any label out there, any categorization out there, we all work from the same feelings list. And if we can take a step back from all this stuff and focus on the feelings, things get really deep. And when we get deep, we get intimacy. And when we get intimacy, we get true communication and we get true connection with each other and true understanding. And I'm doing this through my books in the way that through each story, Bella encounters a skill or a transition that evokes both negative and positive feelings. And what happens is there's a special adult, whether it's mom or dad or Aunt Sue is another character I have coming as a special adult, they relate to her. Like, for example, in my first book, when Bella shifts from a crib to a big girl bed and also rooms, she says, Mommy, I got scared. Her mom tells her, when Daddy and I moved to this house, I got scared. And Bella's like, really? You got scared? You're an adult. And it's that moment of connection and that moment of intimacy. And that's really what I'm going for. And I also create coloring books as well with every book. And I actually have a gift for your audience. I have a freebie coloring drawing, which I will send you the link for. And the reason why I do the coloring books too is in addition, in the back of my books, there is a reader's guide where I point out things I talk about in the books, things Bella goes through, things her mom and dad do. And these are suggestions. I say suggestions because every parent is different, every couple is different, relationships evolve. These are suggestions for you to take and adapt to what's good for you and your child, what's good for you and your spouse, your partner. And the reason for the coloring, and which is why my gift is coloring first and foremost, coloring is a timeless activity. You can be 3 or 93 and enjoy coloring. And it has the same effects on us like at any age. It relaxes our mind. It's meditative. And when we start coloring, it makes it easier to have conversations because we're releasing our energies. And if you have a child that's more introverted, this could be a way for them to say something to you, or it could be a way for you to create exercises to engage conversation with that child. I was on another podcast where we were talking about budgeting and we're talking about how do you teach your child about budgeting. And I said, well, you can lay out different tools for the coloring. And maybe your child chooses the glitter pens. Maybe the glitter pens are really expensive. And you say, well, nope, we use them up. We need to use this first. And you're able to gently teach that lesson, or maybe you're able to imply something else with that lesson. And that's just in a nutshell who I am and what I'm doing. And I really hope, I really am excited to see these books in the hands of parents and children. I'm excited for this. I can only bring it so far myself. The beauty is when it's out in the world and people are seeing and reading it and people are coming back and saying, I saw a difference in my child. Like this sparked an idea for my spouse and I, or my partner and I, to try with our family. Like that's the beauty of creating, is that circle.
I love that. And you touched on it, But is there anything you would like to add about what your books are about?
Oh, sure, sure. So what I did is I chose transitions and skills that everyone goes through. Because there's always that danger when you get really specific where it could be just specific to a certain culture or a certain form of religion or a certain area of the world, even. So what I did, and the first 5 books are coming out, so there's going to be 15 in all. I'm doing them in I'm creating them in increments of 5 because that's what I feel I can handle. Because I go into my creative mode where I storyboard to create the coloring drawings and I illustrate. So I want to make sure I'm giving it my all because I'm an overachiever. I'm gonna be honest. Like if it's not 150%, I'm not releasing it. Like I have that's me. I'm like I can't do 80. It has to be even more than 100. So what in the first 5, and I specifically chose these first 5 topics because Bella is going to age in this children's series. She's going to age from 2 to 7. So it starts off with the bed book. After the bed book, and I'm actually working out which comes next. She's going in the first 5. She's moving from a crib to a bed. She's going to be learning to ride a bike. She's learning to read. She is learning buttons, snaps, and zippers, and meaning how to the skills because you forget that's a skill. Tying a shoe is difficult, and my marketing strategist gave me the idea of adding zippers and snaps. I'm actually rewriting that one right now. That's on my list today. And then the last one is she makes a soup with her mom. And that was the first book I wrote. And that I am Catholic, so that does have a Christmas nuance to it. That is probably the one time where I do that. And there is a gentle, in all my books, there is this gentle hint of Christianity because again, I'm bringing a piece of myself into my books. I say my prayers every night, but again, I say blessings because we all say gratitude, we all say blessings. And again, it's just gentle, but like I do have that Christmas book, but only one per each 5 because like I'm a Christmas fiend. That's just me. And maybe I'll squeeze in other holidays too because I right now with what I'm doing on social media, there's a lot of people that I mean, I like Halloween too, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of people that are like hardcore Halloween. Like, I'm like, wait, we decorate at Labor Day? Like, I love the dress up. I love the party aspect of it, everyone, but like, I'm not, I don't know. Maybe if when I have kids and they're into it, I'll let them decorate, but Christmas is my thing. Like, Martha and we're in competition. Let's just put it that way.
What inspired you to write your books?
I, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. And there was a lot of I was exposed to a lot of systematic abuse, and it wasn't until I moved away and before I start and as an adult I knew even more something was off, and it was just certain things in my life not come together, and my relationship with my mom was very rocky. My mom suffered from certain things that prevented her from being able to communicate with me and being able to love me in the way that I needed to be loved, although she did love me and my family. And I speak for myself. I am one of 3 children. I am the oldest, so like I only speak from my experience and my healing, my traumas. When I started doing my healing work, meaning I was an AC, member of ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. You focus on the inner child and you focus on the critical parent. And the more I started identifying my inner child and critical parent, that's actually how I realized Bella wasn't just a nickname that people called me that I was shy to say. Like when I started writing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is my mom. And it was very cathartic. I lost my mom in 2019. And unfortunately, I lost her before we could be doing this work together. And I realized from losing her so early, because she was very young when she passed, that I have a choice. I have a choice to say, okay, I had these traumas, I had this abuse, I have a choice to do better. I have a choice, not, I wouldn't say do better. That's not probably not the right word. I have a choice to choose a different road. I have a choice to work through this. I have a choice to grow. I have a choice to have a better conversation. And this past Christmas, there was one of my family members, which I will name nameless because I want to protect their privacy. We had a real heart to heart. And I mentioned something that hurt me. And when I said it, I said in the same tone I'm saying it right now. I said, this really hurt. And they were able to apologize to me. And it wasn't a, I'm right moment. It wasn't at all. It was actually the exact opposite. It was a very beautiful, cathartic moment. It was a moment of connection. It was the moment of understanding. It was a moment of us meeting each other halfway. And it was really, really beautiful. And I actually decided, because I'm Kristina Lucia. My middle name is after my grandma Lucy, and I am my grandma's namesake. And my mom was the one that wanted that. Like that was like definitely her idea. That was definitely her power. And I I was very well loved by my grandma. I knew my grandma as nothing but love. And I do understand there was my mom's relationship with her mom wasn't perfect either, you know what I mean? But I know now they're both in heaven and they're good. They're like, I know they're loving their time together right now. But I decided my pen name as Pisa. That's my mom's maiden name. So I wanted, that's the thing too with my healing. The longer she's gone, I realized she really did do the best she could with what she had. And she really, at the end of the day, she wasn't waking up in the morning trying to be mean to me. She wasn't wake up in the morning to make me feel bad about myself. She really just wanted me to be the best I could be. Sorry. And so I decided I wanted Pisa to be my pen name because I wanted it to be, I wanted it to be me, grandma, and mom on every book. And the first person I told that I was considering this, because there's always that thing. I mean, you know, you're in this business too. There's always that legality, like, oh my God, it's going to screw up my, like, when I go into publishing, it's going to screw up my royalties. Do I need a lawyer? Do I have to do some formal paperwork? And so I said it gently. But the first person I confided in that I was considering this was actually my sister. And it was just, my sister's name is Laura. And it was just Laura and I and her son. And it was a really beautiful moment for me. And I credit that to the work I'm doing. I credit that for me to be able to say to my sister, because it is a very touchy thing. You know, we all have very different relationships with our parents. And, you know, I want to be respectful because it's her mom too. You know, I don't want it to be misinterpreted by any means. You know, being able to tell my sister, Laura, that, you know, I'm really considering this. Like, I really want to use mom's maiden name as my pen name, and having her hear it from me first was really beautiful. And the dedication of the first book, like, I'm still working out the wording, but the other piece that also inspired me too is I've redone my logo 3 times at this point, which as entrepreneurs, we know it happens. You're figuring stuff out. So because Bella became the front runner, I drew a picture of Bella, and the picture and the logo is also my drawing. And she's holding 3 roses, and roses are my favorite flower. They're my mom's favorite flower, my grandma's favorite flower. And we also believe in Saint Teresa. And in Catholicism, Saint Teresa sends you roses. And I've actually given that prayer card to friends of all different faiths, because at the end of the day, it's not about the form of religion. It's about the blessing that comes to you. Because if you do believe in her, she'll give it. She will send you roses. I don't care what shape or size you are. She's giving you the roses. Um, Bella is holding 3 roses, and that symbolizes my great grandma. My listening picture, we have a picture of my great grandma holding me and my mom and grandma on either side. And I am the oldest in my family. And my mom at that point is a month into motherhood, and she's all smiles. And so it's kind of my tribute to the 3 of them. And my tribute in the first book is going to be something about the 3 of them. And these books really are love letters to my mom. And yeah, so each dedication, each book will be a little different, because there's different people that have inspired me to do different things in my business, and I want to acknowledge them as well. But you know, I have to. This is my healing path with my mother. You know, I know she can't. She sends me signs, like she does little things where I know she's there.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
When you're writing your book, or as you're writing your series, who are you thinking of when it comes to who your books are for?
I'm thinking. I do think first and foremost, and this may sound a little selfish, but I do think first and foremost, because I am an aunt, I am a godmother. So I think first and foremost for my goddaughter, my nephew, and I'm an aunt to many others. Like, I'm Aunt Kristina to almost every kid in my life. Like, they don't call me Kristina, they call me Aunt or Auntie Kristina. So I do think of all of them, but then it expands beyond them. because I start thinking of my other acquaintances that have children. And I also think of the other adults like me, the other adults like me that are in the rooms with me, and that, or that aren't in the rooms with me yet, or that are seeking that kind of healing work, that have that parent where it's like, ah, my parent never kept promises, or, like, or, we all go through stuff. No one is perfect. Like, we all have some kind of healing work. We all have some kind of adjustment we need to make as adults. And I think of them too. I think of those people that are in jobs that they're not happy, that they feel like they're not shining, or that are living in parts of the world where they dream of doing something else or being something else. I think of them too. And so it goes beyond me. It goes way beyond me. It goes beyond my immediate network. And that's where I'm excited to, knowing the books are coming, knowing it is really, it opened the floodgates. It really has opened the floodgates for me, not just technically what I need to do in order to get them to print, but also just the reach I can have knowing. And ever since I decided to write the books, it's been like that. Ever since I decided, like, this is what I gotta do. And so funny story also for this is also who I think of too. All the people out there, and I know you're out there because I know I'm one of them, and I know I have friends in this. The people who have that parent that when the parent wanted you to be a doctor or a dentist and you decided not to. My mom wanted to be a school teacher. And I know you just met me, but I don't have the personality to be a school teacher. People listening, you can tell by my voice, I don't have the personality to sit still for long periods of time. I'm a creative, I'm an artist, I'm a city girl. Here I am writing a children's series. So my mom did get the last laugh, I feel. And so for everyone out there who's like, my mom wanted me to do this, my dad wanted me to be an accountant, whatever it is, there is a compromise out there. And that's also who I think of too. It's- it is possible.
I love that. How long have you been writing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I started writing in 2020. And that's another thing too that I'd like to share. I suffered from imposter syndrome because my mom and I, like, this is also why our probably dysfunction stems there too, because we were very like close and not close at various periods of my life. She she was an English teacher and she worked in special needs as well. Like, she was always a teacher, administrator, etc. And she was a very, very, very good reader as well. And I didn't become a reader until an adult. And now I'm a reader junkie. Like, I'll read 3 books in a week. Like, I'm that kind of reader. So I honestly thought I wasn't a writer. And I was always knew I needed a blog. That I did know even before I discovered this business, because I was talking to people and I was like, oh, this is like a good starting point. Like, but I couldn't figure it out until I got the characters. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to blog about them. I'm going to tell stories to them. But then I thought, well, blogging is different than writing a book, because I'm from a family of lawyers and engineers and teachers, and they all went for school for that. They all passed their bars. They all are CPAs. If I said that right, I think it's CPA for accountants. I worked as a CPA. Thank you. I'm like making sure I'm quoting myself right. Like, my family are teachers, my sister, my cousins, my aunt, my mom, like, we're talking about masters, we're talking about certifications. So I'm like, how can I be a writer? Like, I don't have a degree in writing. My degrees are in art. My training is in art. How am I going to do this? And so when I started blogging, I met a networking contact who was working with him in messaging. And it was through working with him that I realized I had to write. And I saw the confidence he had in me. And I was like, wait, he has never read my stories, because they were just drafts at that point. And I realized, it's my blog. And that's how I let go of my imposter syndrome, because I realized that writing my blogs, people got a taste for my writing. And I also realized too, I actually am a writer. I also realized I'm a writer. And there were 2 ways I realized I was a writer and I let go of imposter syndrome. So I actually worked before I started this business. The last job that led me to pivot into this, I was working on Wall Street for almost a decade. And I know, again, there's going to be cackles out there because everyone's like, that makes no sense. I'm like, I know. Hence why, and it was through my healing work that I realized that's the thing about healing work. It's not just healing with your family. You're going to see the avalanche and it's scary because all of a sudden it's like tick, 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 tick. Like you have to fix everything. And but I was in research and there were points in my career where I was able to write weeklies, where I was writing monthlies, where I was understanding their language because people in the audience that know that type of writing, it's very specific for the analyst. And also it's very specific because you're advising people on how to invest. So you have to be very careful with your choice of words. And then the most recent moment where I realized my imposter syndrome, like really, if there was a hint of it in the dark corner, it needs to like find the exit and go away permanently. So I'm on a flight back from Italy a month ago, and I was reading my third book of the week. And I was actually mad at myself for not packing the fourth one because I was like, what am I going to do for the rest of the flight? I need entertainment. And the man next to me started talking to me. We had a great conversation with this lovely gentleman. And he's like, well, of course you're a writer. You're always reading. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. It's like sometimes you need somebody else to tell you what's in the mirror.
So true, so true. What made you really sit down and start to write the series?
I realized the business aspect of this series. When you're every business we all work from the same sales funnel. We all work from the same business model. The trick of sales and the trick of building a mission is you need to understand the nuances of your audience and how it's built. And with children's, books are your foundation of the house, meaning that's your entryway into people's hearts, their entryway into your home. That's how you can communicate your message. And then the other things is like a family tree. It trickles down from there. And that's what first inspired me. The other piece is I saw and realized all the opportunities I had to expand beyond the characters. Because when people see my crochet work, I'm also a knitter as well. When they see that, it's, I wouldn't say it's a dead end. That's not the right word. But for the sake of not thinking of a better word right now, it's almost like I get stuck. People are like, oh, that's great. You create toys. Bum. I'm like, no, 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 no. I do more than this. Like, there's much more to it. And when I have the books, I was able to breathe life into the toys and I'm able to show people my illustrations. I'm able to give them a full circle of my creativity. Because the irony is, as I'm saying this, like there are people in my life that only know me as a social dancer. There are people that only know me as a competitive Latin dancer. There are people that know my art, but they only know one style of my art. I do obviously I do the artwork for my coloring drawings, for my illustrations, but I also draw because I have men in my life that are car guys. So I've drawn Ferraris and Maseratis. I do pencil drawings of my nephew and my friends' little girls. I've drawn Disney characters in multiple mediums. And I realized when I did the storybooks, because it's me, because it's my creation, my stories, I have this opportunity to expand and to reach more people. At the end of the day, with children's too, especially with children's, there has to be a mission. And that's also what inspired me to do the storybooks because I needed a way to get my mission out there. Because the mission of communication, I was doing that already through my characters to a certain degree, but I was hitting a wall because it's so tangible. And with the storybooks, I can get so much more. I can get my writing in there, my illustrations, the reader's guide. Like I have and also because reading is so interactive, like coloring, because it's so interactive and it's you and your child can read together. You and your child can play together. Like there's more options through the books. And that's really what got me going. And also too, sometimes also it is me having the urge to create. It is me getting an idea and be like, I want to delve into this deeper. And that's how the blogging started, really. It was me having an urge and me wanting to say, oh, I want to write about this. I have to share about this. Like I was in Italy and I had this epiphany with my mom. And I was like, I have to write a blog about this. I came back and I knew I was like, I need to write about this. And the same thing with the children's books. It's memories, and with my mom gone and with my nephew not going to be where he doesn't know his grandma beyond pictures, beyond memories. Like, I see this as a gentle way that I can share a piece of my mother with him and help, share that with my sister and give my sister another tool to share that with him.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What is your schedule like when you're writing a book?
It depends. I usually have an idea of when I want a book fully written, storyboard, and edited. So I can write pretty quickly. Like, I can write a storybook within a day or two. I give myself room to go back and edit. And then of course, I do have an editor I work with, and I feel very strongly about that. I do feel it's very important to have somebody else looking for your work that understands the business and that understands what's required, especially where my books, based on like what Google says, 'cause let's face it, you can't fight Google. I focus on when people say what age level, I say 3 to 7. For this series. That's the series I'm going for. And having a mom that was very heavily invested in the education world, I'm also focused on an age where you're teaching kids the fundamentals of reading. So when I'm saying I'm writing a storybook for that age level, there is that added pressure of having books that are quality. So I'm bringing quality into your home. I'm adding value to your home. So that's also where I feel strongly about an editor. As far as illustrations and stories, I actually storyboard and illustrate pretty quickly in my opinion. That's my view of it. When I talk to other, I actually got to meet the I mean, she's one of my literary heroes. I got to meet Catherine Hollibird, who is the author of Angelina Ballerina and Twinkle. We had a Zoom meeting in 2021, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I totally fangirled out, and so she gave me some light on her illustrator Helen Craig, and I can't remember the name of the Twinkle illustrator, but she gave me a little color on the time frames they're given. And I do give myself a little short timeline, but the flip side of that is I also need a budget for breaks in between because you can get burnt out very easily. So I usually say, okay, you know what? I want to have this book fully illustrated before I go on this trip. That's usually what I do for myself. Or I say, you know what? Only one illustration a day. Or if I'm storyboarding, coloring drawings, I'm like, okay, maybe it's max 3 a day. But because right now I'm easing myself in. So I've been doing one a day, and I'll kind of clock in my head, like, okay, if I do one a day by this time, then I'm like, okay, I'll up it to 2 a day. It depends on my mood. It also depends on the complexity. Because right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm storyboarding the book where Bella learns to read. And part of the reason why I'm doing one a day as opposed to 3 a day, like I normally do, is I'm keeping in mind what are my captions for the coloring drawings? Because again, the reading book, it's not technical, but I am looking to give parents tools. And I'm like, okay, well, and also what kind of Easter eggs do I want to leave for the parent? Like, for example, there's one coloring drawing in the that's going to be in the book where Bella learns to read, where she's lining up her letter blocks, and it's the alphabet up to a certain letter. And then the other blocks that are off to the side are KLP, my initials, my pen name initials, and my name initials. And then there's another drawing where she's in front of the fridge with her dad that I just did, and the word is half spelt, and there's one letter missing. And again, I include other letters, like for example, the special adult in that book is her Aunt Sue, who actually is my mom's best friend since high school, and is a very dear friend of mine. And I wanted to do that for Sue. Like, I wanted Sue to have a special place in the books. Like there's a SUE among the letters, like little things like that. Little things where if you're reading it 100 times over, you're like, oh wait, I see this. And I'll be putting those in the illustrations too. So again, it depends on. But again, I try to. My goal moving forward is to be able to get. I would safely say I would like to be able to write, storyboard, and illustrate 3 books a year. That is my personal goal. By the time, and ideally in spring 2020, that's what I'm aiming for. Like, I don't have a specific month, so I don't want to say it now in case like I have to shift it. But I do have a specific month in mind. And when that first book releases, the other four are fully edited, fully illustrated, fully storyboarded. So if they're not fully whatchamacallit, laid out at that moment, that's all that's left. It's not like, you know what you mean, like the heavy lifting on my end's done. Like that's always my goal.
What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
So my guilty pleasure is I'll hook up my Mac and I'll put on like my favorite series. I am I am a Sex in the City girl. I love Sex in the City. I love Will and Grace. I love Frasier. So usually it's Sex in the City that I usually have on my computer, or I'll have like a Frasier or a movie or Will and Grace or a movie I really like. It has to be if it's something like that, it has to be something that has really great writing. So as I'm listening, again, I'm picking up on the clues. Like, do I strut my strutter? Or when Frasier will say to Roz, just because you got hit on more times than a pinata in Mexico, or, you know, something clever where I can laugh. If it's not that, if it's not that kind of noise, it's jazz. I am a jazz fiend. I love jazz. I do have other playlists I listen to, but I do like jazz. Nat King Cole is my favorite singer. I love Nat King Cole. He's one of my top favorites, and I love his work. And I love his Christmas album is one of my favorites. But I also love his all year round music as well. And there's something about the mellowness and the melody of it. But I definitely will say that like it's definitely some kind of gentle hum, and I am a New York girl, so, like, I'm used to sirens, I'm used to construction, so you just learn to block that out, but
I love. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Ooh. So I actually eat while I write or while I'm drawing because 'cause I'm OCD, and I hate food all like, on my keyboard, I hate food on my drawings, like, it just bothers me, but I am a big water and tea person. I love water, I love tea, so I do always have a hot cup of black cherry, or one of my instructors is Bulgarian, so he brings me back Bulgarian tea when he visits family. I'll have that definitely, and always water and tea. Sometimes I will, depending on the time of the year, I will light a scented candle just because like I like that like nice gentle scent in the house. But yeah, no, it's very important to have those fluids. And the irony too, as much as I say I like background noise, sometimes I block it out when I'm creating. It's funny because like my favorite song will come on and I'll be like, oh wait, I missed the lyrics. Like, I was like, you know, because 'cause I'm so focused, so it's actually kind of funny when you're creating. Sometimes I forget what's going on, and I do those things in solitary, like, when I'm visiting family. I will bring my crochet work, I will bring my knitting work, but I don't read or I don't illustrate or write unless I'm alone because they are very solitary and they're very focused. And especially when I'm around like my goddaughter or my other friend's kids or my nephew, because I'm there for them. So with knitting and crochet, I can look up at them and I can stop easily. Whereas I know when I'm drawing, I'm gonna get in the zone. Like I'm gonna get in the zone, I'm not gonna pay attention. And especially with my nephew, I don't want to force my creativity on anyone, but I also do want him to know on Christina as a creative. And when I have my kids, I would like that too. And I just want that gentle. Like, I don't want to lead the horse to water, even. Like, I just want that gentle awareness. And I want to be able to respect what they like. You know, I always joke, my friend's little boy, I love this kid so much. He loves superheroes. And when he was little, he was into dinosaurs and now he's into sports. I am not a jock. I have no idea what's going on. I only know football because my dad's a football jock. It was always on, so I picked up by default, like what's going on. I know nothing about superheroes. Batman is the best I have. So when we play superheroes, I'm always like, okay, Christina doesn't know what's going on. Tell me who this is. So I make a joke out of it. But I remind myself by having that openness, I'm still able to connect with him. And my nephew, who's going to be 2 in a week, he's into trucks and he loves storm drains. My sister just sent me a video of him at a storm drain, and like he just showed me on it because it was gritted. He's fine, he's safe. Um, but like, that's not my, I mean, that's not something I would do naturally, but like I'll do it for him because I love him. And I will say that's also my healing work, is having that openness and having that awareness and being able to connect to them. Then you have my goddaughter who's all into our rooms are the same color. I'm not even lying. It's hysterical. I turned to my friend and her husband. I'm like, your daughter and I were like separated another lifetime. And we both love purses and we both love to bedazzle things. So I'm like in heaven. I'm like, yes, let's bedazzle. I'm like stickers. But yeah, but I do love playing with the boys because I love them all so much too.
What books do you enjoy reading?
Oh, good question. I I love reading books, like the same reason why for the movies and the series that I briefly mentioned. I like books that are complex, and I like books that keep me thinking. I also like books that have a sense of humor, a witty humor. I I am a huge, huge Lisa Gregory fan. I've read The Other Boleyn Girls so many times, and I've read her other books too, like ridiculous. Like I think I haven't read everything, but I've read a good portion of them. I've reread the Nanny Diaries so many times, I can't even count. The Time Traveler's Wife is my go-to. I love that book so much. And for people out there that have reread it, it's in double digits the amount of times I've read it. Like it's insane. It's my favorite. I love Henry. I love Claire so much. And every time I read it, I find an Easter egg. And I just find I think Audrey, I can't remember her last name. I know she's a librarian. I remember reading she was a librarian. What a clever writer. I mean, really, really brilliant. But yeah, it has to have a cleverness because I have read books where I'm like, if it's if the writer is handing me everything right there, I get bored very easily. Like I need to be challenged. I need to be challenged. Like I need that cleverness. Like keep me thinking. It's like one movie that does this for me every time, and I watched it so many times. It's like really kind of insane. I Silence of the Lambs is the perfect example. Like the editing is brilliant. There are so many clues. And I actually read the book because I wanted to understand the writing even further. Like those are the kinds of books, like even movies that I like go for and I dig for. And I realized like I'm writing in completely opposite genre with children's, going through a completely opposite energy because I don't have my imagination is too deep to do that kind of research to be able to write a book like that. Or like, as I was reading about, I read briefly about the actors that took place in these projects that were involved in these projects and talking about some of the research work they need to do. And I know me, I don't have the mental capacity and I don't have the separation from my sense of imagination to read that and not get completely like freaked out and have nightmares. Like I know me, I know my limitations, which is why I do children's because I have a big imagination. But that cleverness and that fine attention to detail, like that's what I'm taking away. And a lot of times when I tell my story about being an entrepreneur, when I'm sharing things with people, that's what I'm hoping. I'm praying that's being bestowed because at the end of the day, it's about listening to the how and the why. Because even as a writer, everyone's publishing journey, everyone's marketing journey with me, everyone's illustration journey is different. And if we can step back and listen to the why and the how, it kind of loops back to what I said earlier about feelings. Because we're all working from that same feelings list and wherever we're able to identify the foundations, we're like, oh, I get it. And we can click, 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 click and fit it into what works for us, like our puzzle, our work.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Yes. When I first started this journey, I told my career coach, that's actually when I started my pivot, I met my career coach and that's what helped me really get going on this pivot. And that was in 2018. In 2019, I started this business. I told her because we started off, she said, what is your rocket ship? And I said, I want to be the face of my own brand, but I don't know what it is. And I already knew it was going to be children's, because my best audience is kids and teenage girls. And I saw how they reacted towards me. And I'm way too feminine to say something for men. I'm not even gonna tap that. Like, I mean, I get along. I have a lot of male friends, but I'm way too feminine. Like, I can't design a more men's sports jacket. You know what I mean? To me, it's a very like, you have to have understanding of physique and whatnot. And so I knew children's, like, I wanted, because I knew they understood my imagination and I saw the way they react to me. And when I told her, the men that there were three men at that moment that inspired me and still inspire me: in Walt Disney, Chuck Jones, who drew and created Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, and Dr. Seuss, Ted Geisel. And in 2019, before I got laid off from my job on Wall Street, I watched the Fred Rogers documentary and I saw what he was doing. And I was like, oh, wow, I want to do this. And so when I lost my job and declared myself an entrepreneur, to my coach, Matilda, that really, declaring myself an entrepreneur really pushed me into what I'm doing right now and really made me realize I need to do this. And I said I want to be the fifth person in that five. I want to do that. And I got really inspired. And of course, Catherine Hollivard as well really is a huge inspiration for me as well. And meeting her and being able to talk to her and hear more of her journey, just reading about it, was extremely powerful, really amazing. And of course, the legendary Eric Carle, I mean, just amazing. Like, and I actually do create a hungry caterpillar. I create Lovey and a stuffed animal, and I'm just amazed the power that image has, like the resonance it has in so many people. And it's really inspiring. Yeah, no, I could go on and on and on. And I think the other one too, I'll mention one more author, Don Freeman, the author of Corduroy. I love Corduroy. He's one of my all-time favorites too. So I can go on for hours with writers, but they all did something beautiful. And I see how, as a grown woman, how I'm buying these books and I'm gifting it. And actually, I lie. I'm going to say one more author. I always do this. I always think of one more. I go crazy. The other book that really, really inspires me as well, and I actually have our original children's copy in my house, is The Polar Express. And the reason why I kind of like jumped in spontaneously, I'm like, oh, I saw you shake your head, like, okay, you can say one more. Is because this book has also inspired me to create further. So every time I have a child in my life that has a new that's their first Christmas, I create them an ornament. It's a reindeer head and I sew it onto a sleigh bell, and then I add a bow tie or a bow on the back. And the first two kids I made this for was actually my goddaughter and her brother. And that summer I had made loveys for the kids. This is even before, this is like right when I started my pivot, this happened. That was like the first Christmas of my pivot. And my friend sent me pictures of the kids, and her son was holding the lovey I made for him, the dinosaur lovey. And she FaceTimed me immediately after and said, Kristina, he opened the ornament and he knew it was you. He knew it was from you, and he ran and got the lovey. And he was 4 years old at the time. And I was like, wow, he understands love. Like, he gets it. And I've actually made this ornament for my nephew as well. And I watched my nephew this past Christmas walk up to it and play with it. And when I gave it to him, he was only 2 months old. So seeing him react to it. And so the other piece of this, and I actually did this for my nephew, and I've done it for several other children as well, seeing my friends' kids react to it led me to keep creating it, but also added a piece. So I always gift the Polar Express with this ornament. And I write a note. And yes, I do know Santa. I have inside connections. I have a great black book of connections. I write a note in the book saying that Santa heard it's your first Christmas and he delivered this sleigh bell to me. And as long as you believe, you'll always hear it ring. And I think if I can create a book that can inspire someone to connect in their own special way with the special children in their life, like what a moment, And I see how this author did that for me. I see how Catherine Hollivard or Carl, Don Freeman, and so many others. I know we could do like a whole hour, like a whole day, let's let alone, who are we kidding, about how writers inspire us. And that's also where the books come in. There's something timeless about it. It really is that opening invitation to someone's heart and soul, and it's really beautiful.
So true,
Yeah.
so true. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have a favorite?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. Definitely the Polar Express. That was definitely a big one at Christmas. Um, Definitely Angelina Ballerina. I actually got the birthday book. Other books I got more introduced to as an adult, ironically. Um, what was another one? Oh my gosh. I know I'm gonna think about it probably after this call. I'll think of like a dozen and be like, oh my gosh, I should have said that book. Definitely Corduroy. Hands down Corduroy. I know I mentioned Corduroy. That was a really big one. Other books, it's actually funny because I babysat a lot as a kid. Like I started very young. I started at 10 and been babysitting ever since. Basically, I'm always open to take care of someone's kids. I love children. There is there is this, I discovered it as a teenager actually, and I've gifted it to my friends' kids. Sam's sandwich. Sam makes okay, yeah, Sam makes a sandwich for his sister, and the pop-ups, like the unfolding, and it's all the bugs and whatnot. And that definitely was a big one. Another book as a kid that really inspired me, and this is the first time I really fell in love with reading, because for some reason I didn't like to read as a kid. I think 'cause it was forced on me, and I'm one of those people where if you push me into the box, I'm gonna fight you tooth and nail. Like, I'm just not meant to be in a box, like, and as an adult woman, I'm able to stand up and say that, and I realize I frustrate a lot of adults around me because I belong in the octagon, and it's like, where the hell am I gonna find an octagon? At the end of the day, like, it's not readily available. When I was 10, I read a Walt Disney biography cover to cover, and that really stands out in my mind as wow. And the other book, moving into my teens, the first time I read it, I didn't get it. And then as a senior in high school, I read it again and I got it. And it's actually one of my other favorite books. Now that I think of it, I should mention it because I'm actually have it in my bag. I'm actually like halfway through because I have a book from the library I need to finish, To Kill a Mockingbird. That is one of my all-time favorites. I've read it so many times. I It's timeless, and, like, so it's interesting how I have my children's books that have inspired me, and as I progress in my life, as I evolve in my life, I see, and same thing, every time I read it, I get something new out of it, and there's something really beautiful about it, and even children's books, like, when I read stuff to my nephew, I get inspired. Like one series that has come out in the last couple of years, Little Blue Truck. So I am a Little Blue Truck aficionado because my brother-in-law loves it. And I tell my sister, my nephew, like, because they read it so much with him, I guess he's turning two. He loves the series too. And I always joke that it's really for my brother-in-law too. Like, let's be honest, it's not just for the baby, it's for him as well. And but reading, I can't remember the author's name right now, but reading that book, I'm like, I get ideas, it's like beep, beep, beep. And
It's definitely a good series. My daughter loves it.
oh, I love it. Yes. And they just came out with a new one. I just bought a new one for Caleb.
Good to know.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of that, now as an adult, do you have a favorite series or author that's your go-to?
Absolutely. For children's or for adult books?
As an adult, like I
As
don't.
an
I
adult?
mean,
Okay,
if
gotcha.
you as an adult love
Yeah.
reading children's books, no, whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I do go back to Catherine Hollibird because like I am inspired by her writing style and I love Helen's drawings. I also go to her series Twinkle, which is so cute because I love reading that one out loud. Hey, Twinks! And like, it's really colorful and playful, the writing. I do, I do actually going back to Little Bo Truck. I do refer to Little Bit of Truck because I haven't read, even though I've gifted every book they possibly has been possibly printed, because I'm that aunt who's like, "Is there a new one?" And I actually, for my brother-in-law's first Father's Day, I actually gifted him a Little Blue Truck book. I actually gave him one, and my sister wrote a caption on Facebook and said, "You should have seen his face." And by the way, I mean my husband, not my son. And so I do refer to that as well. Because again, I wish I could remember the name of the author, but I imagine the parents in the audience know exactly what we're talking about. She does a beautiful job. And my sister actually pointed out to me that in one book it's counting, in one book it's shapes. And so I do refer to that series as well because again it's very colorful. And I actually created a custom crochet blanket for my nephew. So I took the cover of the first book. I bought it, so I have a copy for FaceTime. So that way Aunt Christina's ready to do a read. And I actually created a crochet blanket, and then it's appliques of Little Blue Truck. So I basically replicate it in yarn. So I do use that as inspiration because I think it is beautifully done. I feel like there is a great symmetry. The colors are great. It's vivid. And again, it's a little, I think all my books are the next audience up, but still, I also want to cater to the audience as well. You know what I mean? I do. And my editor has already talked to me about, although the series is 3 to 7, that's my age level. She has talked to me about writing book series of Bella for different age levels. You know, like kind of like what Eric Carle's books has happened with Eric Carle's books. So writing for the middle school kids, but maybe it's also more of like the baby books as well. You know, I shouldn't say baby books, you know what I mean? More of the fundamentals. So yeah, I definitely would say Little Blue Truck and Angelina Ballerina are probably my two top ones. But partially because my nephew is a huge Little Blue Truck fan. So I and my brother-in-law. So
I love
all
that.
in the family.
Yes. What would you tell someone who's just starting out with reading again?
I would say if you're reading something that's not inspiring you, that feels like a struggle, it's okay to put the book down and move on to the next. We're not we're not in high school anymore. There's no reading test, there's no book report. Like it's okay for you to not like a book. It's okay for you to not enjoy it. And it's okay to have a simple pleasure. This is gonna sound really actually I was gonna say it because like it's my beach indulgence. I read the Chelsea Handler books on the beach. They are absolutely hysterical. I mean, I realize it's a completely different genre again, but whatever your pleasure is, whatever your guilty pleasure is, like I personally I am not a romance paperback cover. Like it's not my thing. Like I guess I don't like to just like the spoon feed reading. That's not me. But if that's your pleasure, indulge in it. That's okay. You know what I mean? But then again, if you're more like me, where you want something a little more complex or clever, that's okay too. You know what I mean? It's all right. And there are like one of my one of my go-to resources for finding new books is the New York Times bestseller list, but it's also Reese Witherspoon's book club, her Sunshine book club. I do not like every book on that list. I'm a huge fan of Reese. I enjoy her movies. I enjoy her work ethic. I follow her on Instagram not only for pleasure but also for ideas because her team has a very clear image and has a very clear marketing strategy for her, and I really admire that. Like that's the level I'm striving to be at. But I also don't. But it's not a bad thing that I don't like every book there because I'm not the only person in the world. You know, what I mean, so it's okay. It's okay to disagree. It's all right. But then there are tons of books on our list that I adore. And then I actually just read The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, I believe it's by, and I got it on my list and I loved it. I read it in record timing and I went back and to the library and I got another book by Lucy Foley because of that, which is also on Reese's list. So, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay. You really should focus on, I shouldn't say you really should. That's not the right word. I'll take that back. I'll edit that one out. I'll self edit right out myself. It's okay to focus on what you like and no apologies there. Go for it. It's all good. This is about you. This is your pleasure. This is your healing. This is your time for you. This is your self-care.
So true. And it's okay to read across genres. You don't have to pick one and
Yes.
stick with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I to be honest, like I get it. One time I was walking into the office, one of my corporate jobs, and people always ask me what I'm reading when I'm having a silly read. I kid you not. So this is like the owner's son. He's like, "Oh, what are you reading?" I'm like, Confessions of a Shopaholic. Like one week I'm reading World Without End, which I loved, and I read Pillows of the Earth. World Without End is my favorite. Like I did read the next book in that series. I forgot the name of the author. Kind of Follett, I believe. But World Without End, like I read that book in a week. And for people that know that book, it's over 1,000 pages. But I couldn't put it down. Like I fell so in love with it. So of course it's not the week I'm reading World Without End. It's the week I'm reading Confessions of a Shopaholic Goes to New York or something. And I was like, well, you know what? No, we all have our guilty pleasures. We all have our
So true, so true. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone who's just starting to write their own book?
Yes, I would say my go-to for that is just keep writing. Simply keep writing. And even if it's in the form of a blog, and just get it out of your system. And don't be afraid to go back and re-edit. And have clarity on what your mission is, what your goal is. You know, is this, and when I say mission, is this about you wanting to share a story? Is this about you having an urge and just feeling the need to cross out the bucket list? Or is it you wanting to create a foundation for something bigger than the book? There's no right or wrong. The other piece I would say is it can be scary working with an editor, but when you find the right editor, someone that understands you, and again, it's the same thing with the books. You know, not everyone's going to get you right away, or you know, it may mean you have to go to the next person. But having that second set of eyes looking at your book is really, really important, I feel. But I would say when you identify what the mission is, what's important to you, and your clarity of what you want to have, that's really important. That's definitely important. And there was always that aha moment when I met Catherine. She shared her aha moment. Her children were young, and her girls were, I think, 5 and 7, she told me at the time. And they were running around the kitchen in tutus and ballerina gear, ballerina outfits. And she said, that's it. I'm going to write a story about a ballerina. And it was Helen Craig that came up with the mouse, the idea for the mouse. And so hearing Catherine's moment and with me, I already know I was going to write the series, but the aha moment for me for the first story that really got me going. My friend Nikki and her daughter is the one that inspired me to choose the name Bella. Like I said, like it was my nickname. I was shy about doing it, so I was like, you know what, I let me run with this. And I realized, no, my friend's daughter actually helped me identify with my inner child. It's like it was a really beautiful moment. But Nikki shared how she and her mom, who I was also very close to, would make soup every Christmas. And when I started writing, it turned into my mom and I making soup because I always push the kitchen chair up to my mom's butcher block to help her cook. And I had pictures of myself doing that. And I was the one playing on the floor while my mom was cooking. And I had pictures of myself doing that. So that's where it became Nikki sparked by sharing that moment with me. And then my mom and my grandma intervened and helped me solidify it and like pull out my inner child, I believe. So yeah, that's you always have that aha moment. You can't help it. It will come.
So important to anticipate it. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Because I worked in corporate America and that I grew up in a small farm town. When people meet me, they're always like, wait, you grew up in a really rural area in Massachusetts? I'm like, oh, yes, I did, because I am such a city girl. I am a huge traveler. Like I always joke, it's like I joke with my friends. I say, you know, it's like where in the world is Aunt Christina? This year alone, I've been in. By the end of this year, I'll have been in Austin. I'm about to go away again another week. So I was in. I'll be in Austin for the third time in another week. Austin, Texas, dog sitting. I traveled to Massachusetts, Rhode Island to visit family, which is where I'm from. But so that's not really like odd, but like I love Europe. I was just in Italy for the third time. I'm going to Paris for the sixth time this Thanksgiving. I'm always traveling. I love suede boots. I love Manolo Blahniks. I love my Louis. Like it's it's like you grew up in the farm town, and then the corporate thing. 'Cause I'm such a creative. Um, excuse me. I'm a competitive Latin dancer. I dance ballet as well. I'm an artist, I'm a knitter, I'm a crocheter, I'm always on the run. I I will sit on the I love children. I guess I love children. I wanna be married. I want children, and I'm the first one that's on the floor to read and play dress up or play dinosaurs, but I'm also that girl that's like, "Okay, where's the party? Like, let's go." And so that's where, like, the country girl and the corporate girl, they're always like, "It doesn't work." It just doesn't make sense. So that's the dancer thing, the dance especially, they always look at me like, "That makes sense." Like, or when they see my art, they're like, "Oh, I like, yeah," like, that's always that's always, like, right away. It's like, "Oh, it makes sense." And, like, but it's always, me being at a desk typing in a more suit-like outfit or me in rural Massachusetts. I'm like, "I know, I know." And also my accent, like, I don't, my mom hated I shouldn't say hate, that's a very strong word. My mom was very big on diction. She was very big on good English, and she disliked the Massachusetts accent. She didn't really particularly care for the Boston accent. So it's only when I'm really tired that that maybe a word comes out, but even when it does come out, people tell me, and you can tell you live somewhere else, that they don't know I'm a New Yorker. They know it because sometimes, again, I say stuff and, like, and again, I'm from an Italian family, and that's always obvious. Like, everyone's like, the way I look, my dark hair, my dark eyes, and my emotions, they're always like, "Of course you're Italian." Like, you're like, and I'm like, when I talk about my mom, like, "Ma, like, what are you doing? Like, what's the matter with you?" It's
I love that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to say or add?
Oh gosh, I'm just so happy to be here, Courtney. Thank you so much for having me. If there's anything to add, I would love, love, love. I hope everyone listening gets the free coloring drawing. Um, I would love to have you on my email list because I do blog regularly. I do have freebies. It would be a blessing and a great honor for me to have you on my journey. I do have further book ideas beyond the children's series. I am working on other ventures as well, which I will be sharing through my social media. But again, email I feel is the strongest way to reach people still in this day and age. And yeah, I'm just so excited to have you all on my journey. And another big dreams is to be on Jimmy Fallon. That's like one of my biggest dreams. And my other big dream is for the series to go into animation. So there is an audiobook with each book, and I am the voice of the audio. I was very strong about that. But when I say animation, so I'm not an animator, so I would have to work with a team to animate. And Alfred Hitchcock is one of my all-time favorite movie directors. I love his movies too, for the same reasons I said I love the other movies and books I mentioned. I want to pull Hitchcock in an animation series. I want to be a different cameo character in every episode. So it's like, oh, where's Aunt Christina's voice? Where is it? And it's things like that I'm grateful to be here and have this opportunity to share it with you and share it with your listeners. And I always look forward to the moment it happens because there is something beautiful about someone hearing it. Like, for example, I'm a huge Julie Andrews fan. I've read her memoir, and she talks about the man that founded the Shakespeare in the Park and how is that, and when that was just budding, and now it's like budding. Or Al Pacino, when you hear Al Pacino talk about how him and De Niro knew each other in the Village, like I'm like, oh, I wish I was one of those people that was like in that Village bar watching him perform before he got his big break. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes I wish I was there before the wave broke. I mean, there's something exciting, be like, ha, I knew it. Like, I was there. I watched them when they were budding, And so, yes, I thank you for letting me share all that.
I love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know a lot of readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place they can connect with you?
Sure, absolutely. So my best ways to check with me is my website, www.triplecokl.com, and I'll make sure to give you that for the show notes so it's nice and easy. I am on Instagram. Like I said, I do have an email list. That's also a really great way to get in touch with me. If you want a signed copy, I would be absolutely honored to do that. I am working out that logistics. If that's the case, I would recommend you sending me a personal email. I will, hearing you say that, I'm grateful you're bringing that up because as I'm going into this phase of getting the books in print and figuring that all out, I can create I'm also thinking in my head now, this is the entrepreneur in me, the wheels in my head are turning. I would be happy to create an option for that. So that way I can ensure that's an option because the people I'm speaking to about printing my books, publishing my books, have brought that up to me, having author copies and how that works and whatnot. So yes, absolutely. But I would recommend at this point, as you're hearing it, and ideally when this is aired, I'll have a solid answer. I would recommend emailing me, and that's Kristina Lucia. And I'll give this to you for the show notes, just that way it's easy for people. It's Kristina Lucia at triplecokl.com. So that way, God forbid, like I don't have an option set up before when you hear this, because you never know when people are listening. And I just want to make sure I cover my tracks. So you can always email me. I'm always happy to get back to people. And I do aim to get back to people within 24 hours. It's very important to me. Right. I'm able to keep my promises.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Coming on, sharing your experience. We'll be sure to drop links to your email in the show notes. That way it's easy. Again, thank you so much.